The air inside the chapel was thick with reverence and sorrow. It was the kind of morning where time seemed to move slower, as if the universe itself understood the gravity of what was happening. Sunlight streamed gently through the stained glass windows, casting hues of gold and violet across the wooden pews. A soft jazz melody, one of Malcolm's favorite Coltrane pieces, played in the background, wrapping the space in a soulful warmth. But no music, no light, no prayer could soften what was to come. This wasn't just a memorial service. It was a breaking, the visible, gut-wrenching collapse of a mother's soul. Pamela Warner, the quiet force behind Malcolm-Jamal Warner's remarkable life, stood at the center of it all. To the world, she had been his manager, his guide, his advocate. But more than anything, she had been his mother, his first home, his lifelong protector. From his earliest days on set to his final moments in the hospital, she had never left his side. And now she was expected to say goodbye. When the memorial slideshow reached its final frame, Malcolm smiling, his arm wrapped around her in love and gratitude, Pamela's body gave out. Her scream pierced through the silence. "I lost my son!" she cried out, collapsing to the floor. "My baby is gone!" Gas filled the room. Friends rushed forward, but nothing could reach her. Grief had claimed her fully. Even those who had only known Malcolm as a colleague or a star wept openly. Because in that moment, Pamela wasn't just a grieving mother. She became the embodiment of every mother who has ever had to bury her child. The room didn't just witness her pain. They felt it. It was a heartbreak no words could mend. A fierce protector from the beginning. Long before Hollywood knew the name Malcolm-Jamal Warner, Pamela Warner saw something rare in her son. He had a quiet intensity, a deep curiosity, and a presence that radiated even as a young child. From the very beginning, she wasn't just his mother. She was his shield, his advocate, and the manager of his dreams. Pamela wasn't driven by fame. She wasn't seduced by red carpets or flashing cameras. What she wanted, what she insisted on, was protection, grounding, and purpose. "I never wanted my son to just be famous," she once said in a rare interview. "I wanted him to be whole." When Malcolm landed the role of Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show at the age of 14, Pamela's full-time job became keeping his identity intact amid the pressures of sudden fame. While agents circled and producers offered lucrative deals, she made sure her son remained a child first. She insisted he finish school, remain engaged in community work, and keep a healthy distance from the Hollywood circus. On set, she wasn't just present, she was vigilant. She didn't tolerate exploitation, coercion, or anyone who tried to make decisions without her or her son's input. Behind the scenes, she earned a reputation as a firm but fair negotiator. To Pamela, this wasn't business. This was her son's life, the relationship that withstood it all. As Malcolm-Jamal Warner transitioned from a wide-eyed teen sensation into a grounded, introspective adult, one thing never changed: his relationship with his mother. Through the unpredictable turns of his career, the pressures of public expectation, and the personal reinventions he embraced, Pamela Warner remained his constant. Many child stars fade, fall, or turn bitter, burned by an industry that chews up the young and forgets them once the spotlight dims. But Malcolm didn't spiral. He pivoted, and much of that resilience came from the foundation his mother built. When Malcolm made the bold decision to pull back from mainstream Hollywood and pour his energy into music, spoken word poetry, and independent art, many questioned his move. Fans and executives alike wondered why he was walking away from peak visibility. But Pamela understood. She didn't see a declining career. She saw her son reclaiming his soul. "She told me I didn't owe the world my soul," Malcolm once shared in a candid podcast. "She reminded me I was more than a brand." They weren't just mother and son. They were partners, collaborators, and co-authors of a life that prioritized integrity over income. From navigating contracts to designing long-term visions, they made every major decision together. Unlike the many child actors who grew to resent domineering parents, Malcolm's respect for Pamela only deepened with time. To him, she wasn't just a supportive figure, she was the anchor. In an industry that often thrives on manipulation and identity loss, Pamela was the reason Malcolm remained intact, grounded, self-aware, and unapologetically real. Their bond wasn't merely close, it was unbreakable, built on love, trust, and the unwavering belief that he was never meant to belong to Hollywood. He was meant to belong to himself. The final days. A son's quiet. Goodbye. As Malcolm's health declined, battling a chronic autoimmune condition he had kept private, Pamela stayed close. Though he had long since become a father himself, an artist in his own right, and a man deeply admired for his integrity, he remained her baby. She visited him daily in the last weeks. She read to him. She played his favorite Miles Davis records. And when he was strong enough, they would sit in silence, holding hands like they used to when he was small. He told me he wasn't afraid, she later shared in a private letter to family. But I was. I was terrified. Malcolm didn't want a dramatic exit. He asked for peace, dignity, and privacy. Pamela honored that. She stayed beside him until the very last breath, gently brushing his hair back and whispering stories of his childhood. The same stories she once told to put him to sleep. The memorial service. When grief became unbearable. The room had already been filled with heavy emotions. Tributes from former co-stars, poetic readings, musical performances. It was a carefully crafted celebration of Malcolm's life. But when it came time for Pamela to speak, the tone shifted. She rose slowly from her seat, supported on either side by family members. Dressed in a simple navy blue suit, Malcolm's favorite color, she approached the podium with a locket in her hand, one that contained a baby picture of her son. She began to speak but couldn't find the words. Her lips moved. No sound came out. Then the photo montage began, and with it came the weight she could no longer carry. When the final slide appeared, her and Malcolm on a red carpet, his arms wrapped around her protectively, she collapsed. "He was my reason," she cried. "Everything I did for him. And now, what do I do?" The chapel grew still. People stood. Some rushed forward. But all they could do was witness her grief. Unfiltered. Human. Devastating. A legacy shared between mother and son, Pamela. Warner never chased the spotlight, yet her role in Malcolm's life was as significant as any director or producer. She shaped his path, not just in the industry, but in the world. She taught him how to be principled, how to say no, how to walk away from things that didn't align with his spirit. She taught him to be more than marketable. She taught him to be real. In later years, when Malcolm would win awards for his spoken word albums or appear on panels discussing race and representation, he always mentioned his mother, not as a side note, but as a source of his strength. "Without her, there is no me," he said during an acceptance speech. "Everything I stand for, she stood for first." Pamela's promise to the world. Days after the funeral, Pamela released a handwritten statement, her first since the collapse. In it, she didn't speak of the industry or fame or loss. She spoke of love. "Malcolm was not a product. He was not a character. He was my child, my light, my reminder every day that I had done something right in this world." She announced the creation of a new initiative in his honor, the Malcolm-Jamal Warner Legacy Grant, focused on providing mental health support and artistic mentorship for young Black boys in entertainment, a continuation of her life's mission to protect not just her son, but every child like him. Conclusion: a grief that lives on in a voice that echoes. Pamela Warner may have lost her only son, but she will never lose the love that tethered them across decades, across fame, across everything the world threw their way. That love did not disappear with his final breath. It lingers, heavy and alive, in the quiet corners of her home, in the photographs lining the hallway, in the letters folded neatly in drawers, and in the melodies of the jazz records he used to play late at night. To the world, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was a public figure, an actor, musician, poet, and symbol of artistic integrity. They will remember him as Theo Huxtable, as a soulful voice in spoken word, as a face they grew up with and grew older watching. They will post their tributes, write think pieces, and debate his legacy in comment sections and award retrospectives. But for Pamela, Malcolm was never a celebrity. He was never just a role. He was a living, breathing extension of her spirit, her child, her heartbeat, her reason to get up each morning. She remembers his first cry, his first step, his nervous energy before auditions, the way he would still kiss her cheek even at 40. "He was my miracle," she once told a close friend, "not because he was famous, because he was mine." Her cries of "I lost my son" still echo in the minds of those who attended the service, not as a sound of weakness, but as a profound declaration of a love too big to be confined to flesh. That cry carried the weight of a relationship that defied time, culture, and the spotlight. It was the sound of a woman who had poured every ounce of herself into her child, only to find herself suddenly and unbearably hollow. Yet even in her anguish, Pamela's grief holds grace. It is an extension of her devotion, not the end of it. It is a continuation of the story she and Malcolm wrote together, a story rooted not in tragedy, but in truth, in unwavering love, in the quiet strength it takes to raise a black son in a loud world and still allow him to dream. She speaks of him now in the present tense, as if he's just in the next room. And in many ways he is. He is in every word she writes for the Legacy Foundation, in every young actor she mentors with the same fierce care, in every time she steps forward into the world, broken but unbowed, carrying his name like a sacred vow. "You gave the world your talent," she whispered through tears, "but you gave me your heart, and I will carry it until my last breath." Because some bonds don't fade, some voices never leave, and some sons, no matter how far they go, never stop being mama's boy.